Hello, Americans. Hello, people of Connecticut, Weathersfield, too. Intercities. There have been foreign and domestic medical families putting fake conversations on and off database. They've been doing this with the news at the same time. These are influences from all campuses. And the difference between our agencies' involvements with it, our courts' involvements with it, the intelligence tied to them, the state offices, overt criminal enterprises, and private ones, that is also being and haven't been used consciously. There were reports of ISIS being involved with the attack in Ukraine by CNN. I mean, the attack in Russia, the terrorism attack. So they have roles with the World Trade Center attack with all sides. The intelligence community recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There's a Scalora. There are people with the name Scalora also involved with the name Mackenzie. There's a Kate McKenzie. I don't even know. I never had a class with her. She might have been in my eighth grade class with a Mr. Wall with the same name as me. And there are people involved with all sides of that campus and other campuses who have whiting forensics. When I was a kid, before I was born, when I was a young man, and since involved with increasingly with various natures of organized crime bodies. Criminally foreign influence uses of corners of streets with them. I caught them with a principal child offender and with intelligence families near me. And they're pretending it's personal because that's how they do this. To measure and maintain, these are people already have roles with judges and prosecutors and their family members on all sides of criminal and civil cases. Time collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. See the difference of that. These are people that have criminally foreign influence uses of a whole bunch of different ways, observable too, of state capitals, of the names next to them. Hartford Hospital increasingly has people involved with Weathersfield who have been on off campuses, intercities, involved with them, planting evidences next to the, also acting so others can record things because of the relativity of where and how they get away with it by pretending people are lies, told lies or are liars. They're making up things about people on a mass scale every day. All exceptions and exception nature too, that appear to be in demonstration of others or collusions. These are people with New York City that are in interstates, involved intercities, Connecticut, with what can be discerned. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson of the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, in his defendant capacities, his co-defendants, their neighbors, their family members. They're also involved increasingly with people with wire crimes and other natures of predicate acts with Weathersfield Police. The same names as their sources and selves are ones involved with other police departments, intercities, and other agencies. Already they had roles on all sides of criminal and civil cases and the interbranch names and or the intelligence tied to them. Increasingly, people on and off the Connecticut State Corrections Offices and on and off the state judicial branch offices. They have roles of all kinds of natures of organized crime. It is only concentrated where and how it is at medical campuses and fire campuses, for example. And they have to run in to hide live progressions. Further use /S of collusion /S with all natures of crime scenes, including making things up, increasingly only capable of making things up. All sides in criminal and civil cases, their sources, their lawyers, the news at the same time, and the interbranch names, forging names, switching names, and putting sequence shifts together into databases. Collusions with what came first, cover ups, and fake motivations planting. So increasingly, people with all these different countries are involved with people with the name Cololo and DeMoro and Kerr, who are people who have sequence shifts. In other words, I never even had a class with them on grammar school. Never saw them at recess. Never saw them around school. They tried to make a fake exception one time. Never was at a recess. Never one exception of me. I never saw Joe DeMoro. Joe DeMore would put things in with my fifth grade teacher, increasingly involved with people before that with various natures of federal crimes and criminally foreign influenced, you know, bodies even grouped. Like Whiting Forensics has roles increasingly with body jumping spots and names next to them. In investigations, investigators weird how they are used remotely. Psychiatry is one of the things that is used where it is relative, how they could even be motivated to get along with, you know, to get away with in our faces overtly slash insidiously. What our founders were communicated for us to communicate about how that breaching method employed crazy laws against all natural differences, sickly distinctly, because it employed functionally how sickly non-distinctly, measured and maintained left out by identities with convictions for the identities of location slash S, therefore of names, you know, of name slash S. And I say it like that because the species volume. Science is an individual body, a volume. Science, distinctly from, but also non distinctly from its individuals. It is an individual species volume of individuals. All group differences, plural, are in demonstration of how it is difference slash S relative to the one. Identity of hypersimultaneous nature that is scientifically discernible. And how we can follow this, how the science of pantheism slash hyperpantheism was led by the only identity of volume that is that way. It is the only one that is not connected to any other identity, but it is anyway. And then further, see, but we can't appreciate that further because we have been systems individually grouped in together. Tactical from how it has us individuals, group difference slash S, and together species volume science slash S. I tell it best vaccines, some many ways. Pray. In other words, there are proofs that prayer, before it was used with faith, it was used relative to a method of contemplation. It's used properly how to describe how reason and logic works. See, there are all kinds of natures of organized crime that have had and have experts on things like the brain, physics, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, and used remotely shown needs to hide that, but to pretend not to realize. So how they get away with this is by attaching everyone to faked and changed conversations with everyone around them. And relative to the value by the breaching method at countries A through Z, self-valued but used remotely. Where and how self-valued. The breaching method, where it is an answer, is part of all the plural answers too, all the different ways that someone could answer those questions. In like questions regarding the history of modern countries, the history of America, for example. One can't understand the history of America if they don't understand the breaching method that was entrenched before our founders were born. And when in observations of the quality aspects and nature of the suburbs, which are archaeological evidences relative to where their design was a part of that fact, human nature, torture, extortion, fact, human nature, slavery, against every single person, sickly, distinctly, on this continent and on the other continents, because it came from semi-ancient times, because it is using remotely The names individually, all groupings of humanity, those names, and all voicings for humanity. Any name, even if it's a majority of people, black pupils, even if it's a majority of countries. The syntax has been, the short words have been uses of fact, nature, quality, aspects of nature, criminally pointable, tactically delusions, raw. That means predicate acts with facts, collusion, self value, for the importance of understanding how they have replaced, in other words, James Madison, how and why we're supposed to explain him as the face of our founders, plural. And then they used his plan and they brought his plan to James Madison, to George Washington. And George Washington agreed to use his plan. Harvard Hospital has criminally foreign influenced experts on history and experts on reason and experts on security and experts on military and experts on campuses like fire campuses and child campuses and colleges and universities and experts on culture, their own cultures, their own differences, also their sexual differences. They have child abusers, leaders of kids involved with Hartford Hospital, including Sandy Hook promises and Sandy Hook names, involved with judges and prosecutors and victims advocates and people on off the state capitol with obstructions of justice, with child abuse, elderly abuse. You were same names involved on off elderly homes. The same names involved with remote uses of people speaking about the differences of parties or the value of voting. Well, that's one of the things the breaching method uses to measure and maintain self value identities of logic, styles of reason that can't defend themselves and afford to have discerned the value of what and how actually things are recorded. They have readings of statutes regarding what is said online and what can be charged or not. See, they've been planting evidences in legal cases conjunctive to what's online. We can show that in backgrounds and formally there are criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw readings of statutes and precedents. I'm not even a lawyer, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal, I'm not a doctor. I'll delineate their delusions from their criminally foreign influence souls here. There are a whole bunch of ones with the name Leahy. There's a Dingleberry and a Dewberry involved with a whole bunch of people I don't know from other areas who have roles with guns threats and knife threats, intercities, but ties to my street in Weathersfield. These are also people, and including doctors, that pretended they had conversations with me. They have roles with the people planting evidence on my street since I was a kid. And they're lying about how and why. In other words, on a mass scale, they're bringing things between courts that are already criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Part of the way they're getting away with this at Country A through Z, they have unmarked police forms. They have shared intelligence bodies and directions to hide things, like unmarked police forms and roles with their uses of words like crimes and phrases like criminal justice. So, in other words, Central Connecticut State University has roles and had roles recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with the training of state police and other police forms. They have roles with foreign and domestic military. And involve planting evidences with deans. A Dean Judd and a Dean Alford are involved with people planting evidences with Eric Burgess and Eric Oliveri and a Craig Oliveri and a Justin or Joshua Stryker, a Sabi Vigeria, um, Anthony, what's his name? Anthony Pandolf and a Mike Pandolf and their neighbors. Something to do with the corner of that street near where they lived at Wells Road and Walker Hill. Other people I don't know his name, but one kid was jumping up in the ground like repeatedly as if like someone was trying to stay not grounded because lightning was about to come. There are proofs that, in other words, something to do with that, and with the Jostakovitskas, their roles with all these different countries, Korea and Germany, and Mark Violet with the Germany, the black KKK themed at Hartford Hospital, who also have their sexual groups and family members, planting evidence that identity theft, fraud, slanders. They use methods like having people say loaded statements, then pretend people like conversations where the other people there too have been doing the same thing. So they've been using investigators remotely, criminally foreign influence / hypercriminally foreign influence, relative to how they are used remotely, shown needs to do that. So shown needs to hide live progressions for all these group reasons, constantly, actively, increasingly, and ones to come. And they're shown that because they've already had it since the past. We're the kids. We're the parents of adults now went to campuses. There was child abuses back then, abuses of them, where they had self-value roles with it, including when the people, anyone who, the victims who got won suits against that. They still have collusions with the courts and the prosecutors with that. There's a Brian Silver. There's a prosecutor named Salisbury involved with states' attorneys switching names and putting fake things in databases, hiding rape threats as collusions with child sex offenders, medical offenders of kids on and off campuses, interbranch family members, timed collusions with them. The same names, timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. The extended family members of foreign and domestic military has something to do with their roles on off. A whole bunch of names of the intelligence community on off town line drive locations and corners of streets have been planting evidences, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake motivations, intercities with the judges and prosecutors involved and their family members. So increasingly, there are judges involved with people with the name Della Fera. I don't even know all their names. I only know them because from they sought me out for confessions. People I never tried to contact and don't even know at all, but I knew their names because they were repeated to me. A Della Fera family has roles with the Cololo family, and Smith families have roles with the Cololo family, and with this DeMoro family, and with Hanson family, and Weathersfield that are involved with Central Connecticut State University, intercampuses with child offenders through time, further with a principal child offender, and further then before forcing it, and since they've been planting evidences to hide that, has something to do with their roles with intelligence with Orlando, Florida, and Miami, Florida. There are proofs also Melbourne, Florida, because those names have roles with the same ones. In other words, Connecticut Pal Gyms, police athletic league, they have a whole bunch of people involved with judges and prosecutors, family members who have been planting evidences on my street, and they have roles with untimely deaths. An untimely death at Trinity College has roles with a whole bunch of people on my street in Weathersfield who had roles with such and murders that were at the same time on Central Connecticut State University, Trinity College, and the spots next to it. The same names have roles with overt criminal enterprises, even if their roles are with unmarked police forms, because these are people involved with borders too, and uses of words like maturity, because of how they have roles spreading lies with people that aren't even in the same classes, and when they're trying to make fake exceptions, increasingly, people involved with programming and programs, because of how this breaching method employed uses of databases before computers with their identities of relativity / relativity to ourselves, Black pupils. Relativity is not a theory. We have theories, scientific theories, and the fact that there is research or not used criminally foreign influence. For example, to deny the validity of the revelations capable of being had by knowing properly how our founders had this plan of James Madison to counter extort at 13 locations. Okay, thank you. So please, MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News, please get the courts onto paper, one name in sequence, and get the Hartford Hospital has dozens and dozens of names involved with the names intercities involved, and don't let them pretend it's personal too. Weathersfield Police brought this up. Hello, how you doing? You I don't know. I don't understand what you mean, but I'll do anything to help, especially where the kids are being hurt. And I want to be an educator, but I have to be able to, I have to tell them this before I could go on the campuses. They've been putting people. They have a method here where they have a certain type of victim / hyper victim at the campuses, whereas the method that's sickly distinctly against boys and girls as collusions against men and women, because they're keeping tactically replaced short words and convictions proper by our founders. So, in other words, James Madison is our founding father, more so than George Washington, and or equally with him. But then those two, as president and the valuable founders, they had to go get other founders, but they had to counter extort them, and they had to pretend they didn't realize. And everyone, there were proofs they had to pretend they didn't know who it was themselves. And the only way they could survive, because those laws would hurt everyone with questions. No, individually grouped and together, because that's how it maintained role self-value with slavery. It's how it maintained role self-value, keeping the causes and uses of that blamed on other things other than themselves, even with truths like money. Money is not what caused slavery. It was tactical. See, yeah, forgiveness is important. Otherwise, if we don't want to blame other things, others, ourselves, exactly the way the breaching method wanted. The breaching method employed crazy laws before America's founders were even born. It tactically denatured the suburbs, from the suburbs in America, the suburbs in Russia, and the suburbs in Ukraine, were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and to be a landscape theater, not even realizing, because at the same time it was designed to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Only means to cause them as criminal insidiousness natures of positives, as collusions with the negatives syntactically. And defenses of that, self-value roles with that, can't defend that and afford simple words regarding the breaching methods involvements with that and uses of that remotely, black pupils. This has been using remotely, and this knew that it backed modern countries, the countries that are fighting with each other. They share secret relationships that they're not allowed to speak about for a whole bunch of reasons that are too economic costly. Because there are types of experts that can't afford the time and positions of people using logic properly. Increasingly, is one of the answers why people want to have jobs. We have to address how the jobs were employed by the breaching method, tactically, criminally, foreign influence, tactically / tactically delusions raw. All natures of debate regarding isms like socialism, communism, capitalism, they have state collusions with those differences used to get over on anyone who not even realizing, but who's going to address how nature uses differences and how the breaching method is using us using nature. Criminal insidiousness natures of nature. Like some things are natural. Some things are only natural as criminal insidiousness. Okay, have a great day. Adios, amigos. Okay, have a great day, people, too. That's how we end the wars. Get them on paper. Weathersfield police have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles of predicate acts with facts, methods, with people on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and next to it, on off the state corrections offices and next to it. So I'll show you how to fix the World Trade Center. These are people involved with the World Trade Center attack. Has something to do with the intelligence community. I made confessions about the name Scalora, involved also with a police chief Cintron and his lawyer. They have lawyers associated with police chief Cintron and with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, who are also Hartford Hospital has lawyers, and they have students there since time. In other words, forgiveness is to not blame people, but to stay on the acts. They're pretending that on a mass scale that people are blaming others so they can keep it off the acts that people know. They're like predicate acts. And it's nothing personal. They're blocking people from the right being the right ones in schools. The same ones doing it have been with like planting evidences. A whole bunch of people tied to Eric Oliveri. I don't even know their name. They affected. There's one. In other words, they know my name because they've been putting fake things at Trinity College. There's also people with the name Olson and a Mr. Neville. There are people with the name Neville along Route 3, at spots along Route 3, which is one of the conjunctions and adjacents to the state judicial branch offices. But they're involved with this Mr. Neville, planting evidences on and off campuses, identity theft, frauds, slanders, rules of people involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and abusers of kids as leaders of kids, including sexual with the principal child offender, including his roles with the people involved personally and professionally with deans and other family members of principals, and as them. Part of the way they do this is by forcing everyone to speak through others and as collusions with the fake conversations with the people involved, increasingly when they're alone. That's one of the things involved too. Increasingly, these are people with Sandy Hook campuses, involved with the courts and prosecutors and judges involved, who are the ones with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people next to body dumping spots involved with them. Increasingly, having been involved with them with federal evidence is crimes. Not legitimately has one person brought one issue or person before the courts. Maxime, I teach us things. Someone told Judge Napolitano his sources are lying to him. They use his Facebook page to pull this off too. Watch.